Hi guys. Um, I've been thinking about this long and hard about making these videos. There will be a couple of them, but I think it's time. I've been watching a lot of videos about people that have had revelations dreams and rapture dreams and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's about time that I share my own story. Okay, I'm gonna go and jump right into that, and it's a very long story. It started when I was 16. So I'm gonna break it up in a couple of videos and I will upload them all. But to do everything in once would take like maybe a 2-3 hour video. I don't want to do that. Okay, so last year I had myself baptized. But I'm getting ahead of things. I just want you to know that I gave my life to Christ. And I think you haven't fully done that unless you have baptized yourself or got baptized. So it doesn't mean that people that didn't get baptized won't be saved if they believe in Christ, but I wanted to do that. And anyway, since that baptism, things have been going like in my mind, like you feel forced, sort of, not forced, but you feel like you need to tell people what's going on, and I know God leaves it up to you, but there's a tugging at your heart, and unless you take care of that, I don't think that you can actually move on. So basically there's tugging at my heart, and I want to release that weight of my heart. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the first story. I was 16 years old and I was living with my mom, and I was in my mom's home. Upstairs we had upstairs and downstairs. I had a little doggy back then. Her name was Blackie, and Blackie was downstairs in one of the bedrooms sleeping on the bed. That was my mom's bedroom downstairs. I had my bedroom upstairs. And at a certain point I was writing in a notebook, and I was copying my grandfather's work. He had a genealogy about our family, and I was copying that because I didn't want that old notebook to fall apart without having written all that again. And as I was writing it, I was sitting at the table, and we had like a coffee table. I was on my knees on the floor, and I was writing it. And next to me on my left hand side, I saw an apparition. There was a man sitting there. He looked like he was some sort of like from Italian descent, and he was looking at me. He was smiling at me. He had his hands like this, and he was leaning forward with his elbows on his legs, and he was looking at me and smiling at me. And I looked at him, and he was just sitting there, and I didn't think anything of it. Actually, it was normal that he was there sitting at me, looking at me, as weird as it sounds, because I was alone in the house. And then he started to disappear. First his head went, then his upper body went, then his legs went, and I can actually tell you what he was wearing. He was wearing a white shirt, and he had a black jacket on, and basically he had the the buttons of his shirt, he had them open on his chest, like maybe up to here, and he had a bracelet on, but I don't remember if it was on the left side or the right side. And then he started to disappear. Because I looked at him and I actually continued writing. It was like normal that he was there. And I continued writing, and then he started to disappear. And as soon as he was completely gone, the hairs on my back were standing up. And I don't know if you ever experienced that, but there were shivers all over my body, and I freaked out. And I ran downstairs, and I grabbed the doggy collar, and I grabbed my dog, and I ran all the way to my grandmother's, who lived 2 blocks down the road. And I told my grandmother what happened. Okay, so this is very annoying. This shirt is actually too big. My grandmother, she didn't look surprised, because basically clairvoyantness has been in our family. My grandmother was very, very clairvoyant, and she asked me to grab the books with the pictures and point out the man that I think it might be. So I looked through all these pictures, and the man wasn't there. He wasn't in any of the pictures. So this was when I was 16. And my grandmother said she couldn't explain it, because obviously the guy did not come with me. Maybe he was attached to the house. It could be. But I can only tell you it was just absolutely normal. Like he's been there my whole life. And he's been watching me my whole life. Okay? So, for 3 years, I walked around with that thought of him in my mind, because it never goes away. You want to know who it is, right? You want to know who's watching you, and you want to know why you feel so comfortable with him watching you, like it's the most normal thing in the world. And I asked a lot of people. I asked so many people, and and nobody really had the answer. Nobody could tell me who it was. So what you do is you go from one clairvoyant to the next clairvoyant, and you hope that he will tag along, and that someone says, oh, he's so-and-so, he was your great-great-great-great-grandfather, or he's a spirit attached to the house. Well, in that case, he probably wouldn't have come with me anyway. But I can't tell you how normal it was. He was just part of my life. He was just part of it. So when I was 19, I had a friend in school, and I was talking to her about weird stuff that happened in my life, because this is not the only thing, but this is the only thing that matters, I think. And she said, you know what? I know a girl who is clairvoyant, and she told me a lot that came true and happened. So I will ask her if she can help you. And she actually made an appointment for her with me, and I was really looking forward to it. And when the big day came, I sat down with her, and then it turned out I actually knew this girl. But I'm not going to go into that part. She was willing to help me, and she said, I know who he is. And I said, who is he? Who is he? But she wouldn't tell me. She said, you know what? I will tell him to go see you in a dream. And okay. And I thought it was so weird. I said, I'm just crying out loud. It's been 3 years later. Why won't you just tell me? But for some reason, I guess she wasn't allowed to do that. She wasn't allowed to tell me who he was. So we're now 19 years old, and I used to work in the carnations, cut the carnations, and for that I would go to Delft, which is another city, to my aunt's house, and from there on out I would take the bike, and I would bike to work 10 k's up and 10 k's down. And my aunt, bless her soul, she's passed now, she would take real good care of me when she was home. Sometimes she would be with her daughter, and then I had the house all to myself. But I really liked it when she was home. So, but that aside, when I was working there, after a year, I used to work there in the weekends or in holiday vacations, and then after about a year, I was able to put some money aside to buy myself a moped. Okay, so this is where this next part of the dream comes in. Now, mind you, I was living at the time officially with my grandmother. I was living upstairs. And why wasn't I living with my mom? Well, my mom moved to a houseboat, and I thought it was just too small. I said, I'll go live with my grandmother for now until I'm ready to move out on my own. And so I was living with my grandmother, and it was 1985. I was 19 years old, and it was on a Sunday. I woke up on a Sunday, and for some reason I fell back asleep. So this was, and I mind you this was Sunday, day 7, on July, month 7, the 7th. Okay, so I fell asleep again after I woke up on Sunday, July 7th. So that's 777, right? Okay, I always thought that was freaky. And I fell asleep, and I had this dream that I was coming home from work at my aunt's house. So I would go park downstairs, and they had like sort of a little sheds downstairs where I would park the moped so it wouldn't get stolen. So I went inside, and the door that I had to open was shiny. Okay, so I was walking in with my moped on my hand, and I opened the door, and it was shiny, and I opened the door towards me, and in the reflection of that door, I saw this guy. That was this guy that had sat there watching me when I was 16. I saw him, and I want you to understand that I didn't know who my dad was at the time. So I turned around, and I was so angry that it took him 3 years to come forward and show himself to me again. And I yelled at him, "Who are you? Who are you? Are you my father? Are you my grandfather? Who are you?" And I was just so mad. And he was sitting there. He was smiling at me. And he put out his hand like that. And I walked towards him. And I felt I was walking like up to my knees in mud. I was going through some sort of a force field. I was walking towards him. And as I got closer, I almost was able to grab my hand. And I said, "I know who you are." And I felt so much love. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'm still getting goosebumps and I'm getting teary-eyed. I felt so much love. It was very hard to talk to me even. I'm 54 now, and this happened when I was 19. I felt so much love. I was drenched in love. I don't know. It's like from inside, outside, completely. I was loved by this man unconditionally, and I cannot explain how that feels. It is immense. And I knew who he was. I was almost about to say it. I was able to give that love back. It was like I was physically with my soul sending him the same love, and I was about ready to hug him and hold on to him with dear life, and telling him how much I loved him. And he loved me so unconditionally that I didn't understand how I deserved that kind of love. And his name was on the tip of my tongue. It was on the tip of my tongue. I was about to say, "I know who you are. You are." And then I got tapped on my shoulder. And I looked back, and I turned back, and he was gone. And I was so mad. I was so mad. I didn't want to come back from that love. I just wanted to stay in there. I got tapped on my shoulder by somebody, and I turned around, and I think he saved my life. I wouldn't have come back. And the man that tapped on my shoulder, he was a black man. And he showed me a vision on the wall about some old man dying and some young kid taking care of the old man. And the old man was somewhere in the Amazons looking for a cure for something. And he was about to find it when he died of the disease that he was trying to look for the cure for. And the young kid that was taking care of him took the money and ran and used it for horrible things. I got to blow my nose. Hold on. Okay, we're back. Yeah, that vision, I still don't understand what that was all about. I woke up and again, I didn't know who this guy was. It was just so frustrating. So frustrating. And up to this day, I won't be able to tell you his name. I knew who he was, but I won't be able to tell you his name. And if you think it was Jesus, well, he didn't look anything like Jesus. He looked like some Italian guy in his 30s, 40s, somewhere in between there. And he had the same thing on that he had on when I saw him the first time when I was 16. So that ends part 1, and it's time to... I'm going to do all these parts together, but I'm going to split the videos up. And part 2 is still on my quest to find out who he is and finding God.